So as is true with so many of the tasks here, there are multiple ways of addressing them. And it's always worth experimenting because you'll never be sure whether one strategy, one approach is going to be better than another. But in keeping with the idea that simple is better, let's talk a little bit about the simplest kinds of interpolation. So here we have a click. As stated before, probably better off viewing this click in the waveform. I'm going to increase the amplitude of the waveform, and then it is very easily seen here, and we can drag across it. This is a very short event. And so if I grab the interpolator and hit render, then that click should be gone. So for very short events, it's a great way to go. If you have a longer event and you try to interpolate, I'm just arbitrarily dragging this, then RX will say this is longer than 4,000 samples, which is a very brief period of time, and an interpolation won't do a good job because it can't possibly anticipate what would have happened in the bracketed area that we've selected. We'll talk a little bit about how to deal with those situations later. But let's talk about a scenario like this, where you've got a transfer from a noisy medium like vinyl. I'll back up a little bit so you can hear it. The clicks and pops from the surface noise persist throughout the entire recording. Now, obviously, we could get way in here and find each individual click and pop, we probably could, and remove each one by hand by forcing a manual interpolation. And that would be effective but incredibly time-consuming. And it may be that some of the clicks that are low level would be hidden a little bit in the waveform. For instance, there's a click, and there you see one right here that's within the note of the music. There's another one right here, so it's a little harder to find them sometimes. Thank goodness that the people who developed such tools anticipated this problem and developed an automated de-clicking tool. And so what it does is it looks for anything that is non-periodic, in other words, unpitched sounds, and forces an interpolation. So let me click the output clicks only in preview, and you can hear that RX will identify these clicks. I can change some of the settings. I can change the width of the period within which it looks for a click. If you make this too wide, remember, it may pick up some musical sound and start to damage the audio. So I'm going to leave it at a relatively short duration. There are plenty of presets here. For instance, there's one that's called Vinyl Record that optimizes the settings as a starting point for removing clicks from vinyl. So once you're satisfied that you've got good settings, you can hit preview, of course, and then render. And in this brief period, it repaired 935 clicks. So listening to it. Now, if you listen very carefully, you may notice that there's still a little bit of surface noise there. So sometimes it takes a second pass. And it grabbed about another 950 clicks. And then there's yet another tool that's designed to remove short-term transient noises that's called a de-crackler. But really, this is like a de-clicker, except it's looking for very low amplitude signal, kind of embedded, if you will, in the audio. So if I render with that, it's always a good idea to go back and make sure that you don't feel that you have somehow damaged the timbre of the audio. The whole recording sounds a little less bright, but that may be a psychoacoustic effect of simply having less noise. You know, one of the interesting things about doing this work is the way that our brains, when we hear a sound, sure, we can sort of analyze it with our conscious attention and point to something that's music and something that's noise, but we also at the same time experience it as a single sonic phenomenon. And so sometimes noise causes us to think that there's more high end, for instance, in a recording, and when the noise is gone, we feel that it's gotten dull. So you really have to listen carefully and make sure that you're doing good and not too much harm, if any.